Hello, in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how to apply a classic split tone effect to your images. So here we have our original colour image of a nice seascape, and what we're going to do is convert that to black and white and then use colour variation to apply different tones to the shadows and to the highlights. So this is slightly different to toning, where you just put a simple coloured overlay and then use blending modes to get the toning effect. What we're actually doing is we're applying a different colour to the highlights as we are to the shadows. So when we've finished our process, we'll end up with a split tone image that looks just like this. So here we have the final image, and as you can see it's got quite a nice bluey green tone to the picture. And rather than having absolute black, we've just got that slight influencer colour in those shadow areas. So what we'll do is I'll just close that down and we'll get started with our original picture. And what I want to start off doing is just to give it a nice square crop. So if I go over to the tool palette on the left hand side, just select the crop tool. Shortcut for that is just C on your keyboard. Then making sure at the top my aspect ratio is set to no restriction. I'm just going to hold down the shift key on my keyboard and then just drag the crop tool across, which will make a perfect square. Again, I'm just going to hold the shift key just to constrain the movement of the box horizontally. Just move that slightly over to the left, click the green commit tick just to confirm that, then go Control 0 just to maximise the size on screen. Now at the moment we've got a colour picture, and what I want to do is just to remove all of the colour from the image. So if I go straight up to Enhance, down to Adjust Colour, and I just want to go Remove Colour. And that's a very simple desaturation method. So with that done, I can now start to apply the split toning effect. And again, we can do that by just going up to Enhance, down to Adjust Colour, and if we scroll right down to the bottom of that menu, we've got Colour Variations. So I'll click that once just to bring up the Variations dialog window. Now, just down here on the left hand side, we have Select Area of Image to adjust. At the moment, that's at mid-tones. And I want to start off by selecting Shadows. So just down here at the bottom, I've got 6 buttons which will increase or decrease the red, green and blue. And I can increase those colours just by clicking on each of those squares, or likewise just click on the decrease just to decrease that colour. To start off with, I'm just going to increase the blue by 3, so if I just click that 3 times, and we can just see we've now got a nice blue tone to the image. I'm going to increase green by 1, and then I'm just going to decrease the red by 1 as well. We can already see the picture starting to get the colour and effect that we want. So I've adjusted the shadows. Now I want to take a look at the highlights. So if I click Highlights, and this time I'm just going to increase the blue by 1, and also just increase the green by 1 as well. And now we can really see the picture taking shape. So with our colour variations done, I'm just going to click OK to apply that to the image. What I want to do now is just to increase the contrast. So if I go down to the half moon icon in the Layers palette, just left click that once and select Levels. And I'm going to increase the shadow slider just up to about 20, and as you can see that's just clipping into the histogram there. And I'm going to decrease the highlight slider likewise down to about 240, just clipping into the histogram. So with that adjustment made, just going to click the Layers tab so I can see what's going on. Just close that effects layer. And I'm going to just remove some of the effect of the levels just on the rock there, because we're losing a little bit of detail in the shadows. So first of all, just going to zoom into the image so I can see what's going on with the rock. And we can do that by going Control plus or Command plus or Apple plus on a Mac. Then select my brush tool, make sure that I've got black selected in the colour swatches as my foreground colour. And just going to set the brush size to about 100. I'm then going to just increase my opacity, which is 8% at the moment, to about 20%. And then just going to very gently use that over the rock just to remove some of the effect of the levels just from the darker areas of the rock. And as you can see, we're just pulling out a little bit more detail that was getting hidden by that levels adjustment. So if I just hide the layer mask, and I can do that just by holding down Shift and clicking into the layer mask, and you just see how that detail's been lost in the rock. Holding down Shift and just left clicking again into the levels layer mask, and that switches it back on. Okay, so I've made that adjustment. I just want to flatten the levels layer back down onto the background layer. So if I go up to my layer options and select flatten image, and that just flattens that straight down. So we're now left with our background layer. Now, just to help pull out a bit more of that detail, just going to use the dodge tool just to increase the highlights. So if I select the dodge tool just here, then I want to make sure that my range is set to highlights and my exposure at 5%. Just going to decrease the brush down to about 100 again. And then just carefully brush over those rocks just to increase those highlights, and that'll just sort of really make the rock stand out within the image. Okay, with that done, I'll go Control 0 or Apple 0 just to make the image fit full screen. And now I just want to knock that colour back just a little bit. So if we go to Enhance, Adjust Colour and Adjust Hue Saturation, I'm just going to take my saturation slider down to about -10. So not much of a change if I just preview on and off, and you can just see how that kicks that colour back just a little bit. And I'll just click OK to apply that change. Now that we've done that, going to sort of darken the edges a little bit, just by applying a vignette. So if I go up to Filter and Correct Camera Distortion, just switch off the grid by clicking the tick down in the bottom, just underneath the preview. And I'm going to reduce the vignette down to darken to about -50. And just click OK to apply that to the image. Okay, now the last step is just a little bit more dodge and burn. So I'm going to increase my brush size up to about 1000. And we should still have the dodge tool selected. What I'm going to do is just brush over just some of these highlights in the water just to bring them out and really make them sort of stand out from the image. So just very quick there. Then I'm going to switch to the burn tool, make sure my range is set to shadows. Again, just increase that to about 1000. And my exposure at 5%, and then just brush over, and you can just see the depth that that's suddenly bringing to the water in the foreground. Okay, so that's just about finished off. A little bit more burning just here. And once I've finished all my dodging and burning, the final step is just to flatten back down the image. Now, because we've used the filter and correct camera distortion, what that does is converts the background layer or the flattened image back into layers. So in order to just have a nice flat and simple picture, which is easy to print out and will also be smaller in file size to save, we're just going to flatten that back down. So if I click my layer options, back down to flatten image, and you'll see that layer 0 becomes background again. So we're now safe to save that down, and there is our completed split tone image within Photoshop Elements 8.